someone gives you a little bit of power or a little bit of authority, you can let it get to your head. That doesn't make you a bad person, by the way. Some people are just naturally like that. They get a little bit of power and they get a bit too excited. If you're one of those people, then I'd probably really question whether managing people is for you, because that personality trait will 100% manifest itself in your management style. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please do hit that subscribe button, and thank you so much for watching this video. My name's Shay. I make career, financial well-being and lifestyle content. So if that is the type of content you're interested in, then you are in the right place. So in this video, I wanted to talk about how to know whether or not being a people manager is right for you. Now, there's a lot of people that are a little bit conflicted about whether people management is the direction that they want to go. And this is for a number of reasons. One, it could often be the fear of the unknown. They're not sure whether managing people is right for them. They don't really know what it consists of. Now, the reality is a lot of people go into management because they believe that that is a natural course of progression, but it's not for everyone. So hopefully some of these questions will help you consider whether or not people management is right for you. Or if it's actually the opposite and you are quite certain about the fact that you don't want to be a people manager. I think these questions are still applicable because it might solidify your reasoning for not wanting to be a people manager, or it might actually make you think about people management slightly differently. So yeah, let's get into the video. So the first thing that I think that people need to consider, and it might sound like such an obvious one, but do you like people? Do you like people? Are you kind? Are you warm? Are you a people person? Now, a lot of us like to think that we are a people person until we actually have to deal with people. Now, bearing in mind, like, management is a whole different ballgame. You're dealing with people in a capacity that you might not usually. It's different to being able to spend time with people and have a laugh and a joke and maybe go for a drink after work and you think, oh yeah, well, I'm a people person, I can manage. No, it's a different ball game when you're having to consider somebody's individual needs on a regular basis, and you cannot apply the same management style to everybody. Everybody needs a different kind of attention from you, different kind of support. So really ask yourself, like, are you a kind person? And I think that you do have to be kind to be a manager. I don't think that being unkind suits being a manager. I do think there's some people that think that they can be a little bit cold and hostile and they can still get away with managing. Well, no, what you're doing is you're not managing, you're just mean. And the reality is your direct reports probably hate you. So really ask yourself, like, are you a people person? And people person in the sense that being a manager means you are dealing with people all the time in different capacities on a regular basis. So yeah, really ask yourself if that's for you. And it might not be. And bearing in mind, just because you might think that you're not necessarily, your personality may not suit being a manager, doesn't mean that you're not a kind person, doesn't mean that you're not a people person. It just means that you may not want to extend those parts of your personality to having to manage other people. And I think that is completely okay. But it's definitely a question to really ask yourself, do you think that you can deal with people in that capacity? And yeah, it's really not for everyone. The answer may not be yes. So yeah, really dig deep and ask yourself, are you a people person? And are you enough of a people person to be able to be responsible for other people? Now, the next question that I would ask is, are you able to really put your feelings to one side in order to manage the expectations of others? And that might sound like a very broad question, but I think that as a manager, a really effective skill to have is being able to really isolate how you might feel about something in order to accommodate how your team feels and what they expect and what they need from you. So that might, and don't get me wrong, everyone's human. So you might have times where your feelings come to the forefront and you can't help it. But I think that a really good manager is able to separate that and really be able to understand the needs and the requirements of their direct reports and not put their feelings before the feelings of their direct reports. I think that you put your people first, and I think that that's something that you really will need to do on quite a few occasions. There might be some occasions where that's not possible or applicable, but I think in more cases than one, you should be able to put your people first. And if that's something that you feel that is difficult for you to do, and you feel that ultimately your feelings come first, what you want comes first, what you need comes first, then that's a very I suppose, I don't want to say selfish, but that is a very self-isolated way of thinking, and it's not necessarily the most applicable quality to being a people manager. So again, really ask yourself, are you someone that's able to do that effectively? And if you're not, that's okay. Like, some people are just like, nah, I'm all about me. I just want to come in, I want to do what I'm doing, and I want to go home. I don't want to have to deal with other people in that capacity. And that's okay, but it just means that maybe people management might not be for you. Now, the next question I would ask myself as well is, are you power hungry? Are you someone that lets power get to your head? And this might be a difficult trait to identify, but maybe think about situations where you're given a little bit of authority in something. I don't know. Let's say outside of work, someone's asked you to plan something and you find yourself getting really controlling and really overprotective and just a bit power hungry. You let the power get to your head. If someone gives you a little bit of power or a little bit of authority, you can let it get to your head. That doesn't make you a bad person, by the way. Some people are just naturally like that. They get a little bit of power and they get a bit too excited. If you're one of those people, then I'd probably really question whether managing people is for you, because that personality trait will 100% manifest itself in your management style. Now, letting the power get to your head and being a bit of a dictator and allowing that authority to let you. So, for example, there are some people that they say no because they can. So, for example, your direct report asks you if they can have a day off and you 100% know that they can, but because you have the authority and the power, you say no because it makes you feel good that you're the person that can control that decision. Yeah, if that's you, and sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves here, because there are people like that. They can't help it. It's just a part of their personality. It doesn't mean they're bad people. They just can't help themselves. And if you know that that's you and that you would probably let that power get to your head ever so slightly, then yeah, I would say people management is probably not the direction that you should be going down, because you will have plenty of moments where you could exercise that level of authority and you have to humble yourself enough to know when it's applicable or not. If you're not able to differentiate between when having that level of authority makes sense and it's applicable to the situation and it's necessary versus, yeah, I'm just going to say no because I can, I'm just going to be this way because I can, then yeah, I would probably say maybe people management is not for you. The other question I'd ask is, are you a good listener? And do you listen with compassion and sensitivity? And this is because outside of day-to-day work, there are going to be times your direct reports might come to you with personal matters, things that are affecting them, whether in work or outside of work, and you need to be able to be compassionate towards whatever it is that they're telling you. And if you're somebody that's not really good at that, you're not really good at being able to manage other people's feelings or being able to exercise that level of compassion. Again, that doesn't entirely write you off as a manager, but I think that it will make it difficult for your direct reports to connect with you, and it will be difficult for them to be able to talk to you. So yeah, and I think being a good listener as well doesn't just apply to personal matters. Even at work, if your direct reports bring an idea to you or they bring a suggestion to you, do you actually listen? Do you actually take on board what they're saying? Because sometimes I think that as management, you might think that you're right because you have the level of seniority, but you're not always right. I'm definitely not always right. Sometimes my direct reports will challenge me on things, or they might come with an idea that I haven't thought of, and I'm like, that's brilliant. Why didn't, that's a great idea. Why didn't we do that? Let's do that. Let's do it. And I think that it's being able to humble yourself in those situations as well, where your ideas might not be the best ideas, and just because you are the manager or you are the head of department doesn't automatically mean that what you say holds more weight than what your direct reports might be saying. So it's really being able to apply that good listening and taking on board what you're being told, what you're being asked, what your direct reports require from you, and making sure that you act on that. Because there is one thing to listen, but then there's another to listen with intention. So actually following through on whatever it is that they've said. Of course, there's going to be situations where they bring things to you and it's not everything that they say that they might be right. It's not everything that they say that you necessarily have to act on or are able to act on, but just acknowledging and showing that you're listening and that their voices are heard and that you're going to take on board what they've said. And if for whatever reason you can't, explaining that and communicating that effectively to them so that they understand that it's not personal, it's not that you're shutting them down, but these are the circumstances as to why whatever it is that they're saying isn't something that can be implemented right now, etc. So yeah, are you a good listener? Because yeah, if you're not, then again, if you're somebody that maybe you can't be bothered to listen or listening isn't your strong suit, then yeah, definitely something that I would say you might want to question whether or not management is for you, because you are going to have to listen a lot more than you speak as a manager. Now, this next tip is a bit of a difficult one, but something that I think is very, very important, and it's, can you take constructive criticism well? And this is really important because I think that feedback is important when you want to learn and grow. But I think that sometimes management might think that that feedback is only applicable to the person they're managing. As in, you might think that it's only your job to give feedback, but no, it's also your job to receive it. And are you good at taking that level of constructive criticism? Because sometimes, you know, your direct reports might say things to you that might hurt a little. It might be a bit like, oh, wow, didn't know you felt like that. And you have to be able to separate your personal feelings from the criticism that you're receiving, as long as it's constructive. Of course, like, I'm not here condoning situations where people are just being mean or dragging you for no reason. I'm talking about when they actually offer constructive criticism that is going to help you be better at your job as a manager. So whether that's letting you know that they need more support from you, whether that's them letting you know that they didn't quite like something that you did or something that you said, whatever that is, but being able to actually take that criticism well and act on it. And I think that's really, really key, really key. And it's important to be able to look inwardly as well, and not just what you think, because sometimes you have a version of how you're coming across or how you're doing things, but your direct reports might have a completely different perception of that, and it's important to be aware of what that perception is. And if you feel that there's not really situations where they've necessarily been forward enough to tell you what they think, it's also being brave enough to ask and say, look, like, let me know, like, just be completely honest, and let me know what's working, what's not working, and being able to give them the platform to be able to do that, whether that's anonymously, whether that's in one-to-ones, etc. But just really being open to that constructive criticism, because I think that as a manager, it's going to come. And yeah, I think it's important to not just hold on to the positive things that people say about you, but also to maybe take on some of the not so positive things and look at how that's going to help you grow and develop. So if you're someone that feels that you're not really keen on being told as a manager, maybe you're not doing what you should or what's expected, then management might not be for you. Another question to ask yourself is, how do you like to work? Do you prefer to work a lot more independently, or do you prefer to work more collaboratively or as part of a team? Because again, this is something that will also help you determine whether management is the route that you want to go down, because some people are very, very much, they just want to be a subject matter expert, they want to focus on their area, they don't want to think about anything else, they just want to focus on what it is that they're doing. They don't want to necessarily think about what other people are doing. So if that's you, then I would probably say, yes, management might not be for you, because you don't really get the opportunity to work as independently as you might like. To some capacity, yes, because the things that you're going to be doing within your role is going to be different to what your direct reports are doing. So there is that level of independent working there. However, you are continuously having to factor in the work of others into the work that you're doing and into the overall delivery of your role. So if you are someone that just wants to be responsible for what you're doing and you just want to work independently, you don't really want to have that much interaction with others, then yeah, people management might not be the direction for you. The next tip I'd give, and it kind of ties into the last one, is, are you able to handle the level of responsibility that comes with being responsible for other people's output? So essentially, being responsible for the work that other people do. Now, going back to the last tip I gave around working independently, some people don't want to have to think about the fact that, I don't know, Joseph hasn't done his work this week, or Joseph hasn't hit his target this week. All they want to focus on is, have Shay hit her target? Have I hit my target? Yep. Have I done the work that was on me to do? Yep. Whether somebody else hasn't done their work or not, they don't want to be involved, they don't care. So if you're that person, then like I said before, management might not be for you, because a lot of what comes with management is being responsible for other people's output. Of course, you're not necessarily responsible in the sense that you're not able to do the work for them. However, the output, the work, the delivery, it reflects on you. You're being assessed on how well your team are performing. And if your team are underperforming, that doesn't look great on you. So you could be doing the best job that you can as a manager, offering the support in terms of the actual tasks that you have separate to line management. You're going to have your own tasks, you're going to have your own level of deliverables, and you might be smashing those, but then you might have people in your team who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, are not doing what they should be. And unfortunately, that will reflect on you, because you're being assessed for your overall team performance as well as your individual performance. So yeah, if you're somebody that doesn't feel like they can necessarily handle that, or you would get frustrated at that, or it would be difficult for you to handle difficult discussions with your senior leadership team in terms of having to explain why your team might not be performing to the standard that's expected, and if you think that you'd struggle with that, then yeah, probably something to really reconsider if line management is what you're thinking about, because that is a lot of what comes with the role. Another question that I would ask is, are you able to apply a really good level of discretion to personal matters? And that might sound like a really obvious one, but you'll be surprised how many managers out there are not able to do that. Managers that will tell your personal business to another colleague, or they are not really good at handling awkward dynamics or awkward situations, and because of that they end up saying things that they shouldn't say. So yeah, being able to really apply a good level of discretion and being able to keep things personal between you and your direct report is very important. The direct reports need to feel like they can trust you, and if they feel that if they tell you something you're going to tell somebody else, or you're going to discuss it with somebody else without their permission, then yeah, that's probably, not even probably, that's an issue. That's a big issue. So if you're someone that feels that, you know what, I can't deal with what comes with having to deal with different people's personal matters, and I don't know if I can necessarily stop myself from discussing it outside of that particular interaction, then again, might not be for you, because there will be a lot of situations where that discretion will need to be applied, and there will be a lot of situations where there might be awkward dynamics that you need to step into, and yeah, just difficult conversations that you might have to have. And I think that if you are somebody that probably doesn't do well with having those type of difficult conversations or applying that level of discretion, then yeah, you might really want to ask yourself if that's the direction that you want to go down. And the final thing that I would probably ask is, are you comfortable with not always being right? And I think I sort of touched on this in one of the other tips I mentioned, but there might be situations where you as the manager are not right. The decision that you're about to make for your team or for your department is not the right decision, and your direct reports will call you out on it. And are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with perhaps feeling a little bit inadequate sometimes in terms of, wow, well, I thought that as the manager I was making the right decision for the team or for the department, but actually now being presented with all of these facts, it's clear that I'm not. And are you somebody that you feel that that would affect you? Would that affect your confidence? Will that affect the way in which you interact with your direct reports going forward? Will you feel embarrassed by that, etc.? I think you have to have a level of thick skin to be a manager, because there will be situations where people challenge you. And it can be frustrating sometimes when you feel that, oh, I really thought that I'd thought this through, but now I'm being told actually that isn't going to work. But I think that's completely normal, and I think that's great. I actually think it's a good thing, and I actually think it shows that your management skills are where they should be, in terms of people feeling empowered enough to be able to challenge you, to be able to say, actually, this decision that you're about to make is not the right one. They're not going to sit back and watch you look like a fool, because the reality is, if they didn't have that level of trust or a level of respect for you, they could easily sit back and say, well, this decision that this person's about to make is terrible, but you know what, I'm going to leave them to it. But no, they actually feel open and empowered enough to be honest with you about that. So I wouldn't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but there are some people that would take that quite personally, and that they feel that they always have to be right, and that they feel that their decision always has to trump the decisions of others. So if you feel that you're that person, then I would definitely say that management is probably not for you. I want to put out there that you might resonate with some of the things I've said, but that does not necessarily mean that you will be a terrible manager. It just means that it's something that you really need to think deeply about and give it some real thought, because yeah, it might not be for you, but then it doesn't mean that it can't be for you. So it just means that you need to think more carefully about these things and be conscious and be aware of it. Who knows, that might be the direction for you, it might not be, but you just need to really consider, is that the right route for me? Does this work for me? Does my personality gel with this level of responsibility? Are my skills transferable to being a manager or not? Some people are great individual contributors. They're great subject matter experts. They're great in working on their own and delivering, but having to deal with people is not their strong suit. And I think that's completely okay. I don't think that makes you a bad person at all. But I just think it's important to be conscious and aware of some of the things that go into being a manager before you make that decision. Because ultimately it's other people's lives that end up being affected by that choice of you stepping into management when actually maybe you never really should have. So yeah guys, that's it from me. If you have any other things that you think people need to think about, please do drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what some of your ideas or experiences have been. But please do like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.